replay. Let's get out to the guest hotline right now. And boy, what an upset last night. 20-1 if you were betting on Joshua, 11-1 if you bet on Andy Ruiz coming back. So let's get out to the Progressive Insurance Hotline, sponsored by Progressive, making it easy to bundle your home and car insurance from Montero Unboxing, the YouTube channel undergoing great success, of course, and love having him on as a guest. It's the great Mike Montero. What's up, Mike?
Hey, what's up, Dave? How you doing, man? I'm still buzzing from last night, man. That was a crazy, crazy upset, and that is why we watch boxing.
And I know you and some of the other experts I have on, like Steve Kim and Doug Fisher, who know it better than I do, you were all telling me that Andy Ruiz can fight. I mean, you weren't picking him to win, but he has good hand speed, he can fight, and don't let the body fool you. And all of you were correct last night.
Yeah, look, in all martial arts, whether it's boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, what have you, skills and a good game plan, will, all of those things will always supersede muscle. And, you know, if you looked at the weigh-in, these guys weighed in Friday, and Ruiz weighed in at 268 pounds, and Joshua weighed in at, I think, 247 and some change. You know, chiseled muscle. He's an Adonis. And the casual fans looking at that like, what the hell is this? This isn't a real fight. But those of us, you know, who've seen Andy Ruiz training out of the Los Angeles area, that's where he grew up, Southern California, best gym scene on earth. Right now, Los Angeles is running boxing in North America. And we knew this guy could fight. We just didn't know, could he take the shot? Could he take the power from AJ? Now, he got dropped in the third round, but he got up, he fought back, and I think Anthony Joshua got a little overzealous, dove in and tried to finish him, got caught, and Ruiz was able to recover. Joshua wasn't able to recover. That was the difference.
Now, stamina problems and a weak chin kind of exposed last night. Were we overrating Anthony Joshua all along? Maybe not quite as good as we thought he was?
Well, you know, that's possible. But, you know, we also have to back up. This is just one loss. And, you know, in boxing, in all fight sports, it's okay to lose. It's about how you come back. You talked about, you know, possible chin issues, right? Well, the last great heavyweight was Vladimir Klitschko. The last great heavyweight before him was Lennox Lewis. Both of those guys had bad knockout losses earlier in their career, but they were able to make changes in camp, make changes in their fighting style, and use the natural gifts they had, their height, their athleticism, their length, things that AJ has. And they were able to come back and have Hall of Fame careers, if not all-time great careers. So we don't know. The jury's still out on Anthony Joshua, but he was really seen as the heir apparent, right? He was seen as the guy that was going to take over the throne. He wasn't yet the undisputed heavyweight champion, but he came into this fight scene as number one heavyweight, and now that bubble is burst. You know, he fought Vladimir Klitschko a couple years ago in the last great heavyweight fight we've seen for, you know, decades. Probably the best heavyweight fight we saw since Bo and Holyfield, their fights. And Klitschko was in his 40s, faded, and hadn't fought in 2 years, and he dropped Joshua in that fight, if you remember. Almost had him out of there. He kind of showed the blueprint for how you can get to Joshua. But he was past his best. He was faded. Andy Ruiz, yes, he's kind of chubby. He doesn't look the part, but he's got the skills, and he's in his physical prime. So he finished what Klitschko started, and he was able to not only hurt Joshua, but stay on him and get him out of there. What a performance. Definitely
and I know,
the upset of the decade.
And I know you, Mike, you box yourself, and you were a former member of the Marine Corps, and I said this earlier in the show. I can't tell you how many times in my life I've seen a guy with pretty muscles get his ass whipped by a fat guy in a bar fight. So you can either fight or you can't. That doesn't help you.
Oh, yeah, man. You talked about the Marine Corps. I mean, you know, back in boot camp in Paris Island, you know, I'm a 6'4" guy. I wasn't quite as muscular then. I was maybe 175, believe it or not. But the drill instructors I feared the most were the 5'6", 130 dudes, because those guys were crazy. And those are the guys that whoop their butt all the time. So, yes, do not judge a book by its cover.
Mike Montero Unboxing, joining Dave Smith here at SB Nation Radio and SBNationRadio.com on the Progressive Insurance Hotline, brought to you by Progressive Home Insurance. Get your quote at Progressive.com today. So what's next? We're going to get a rematch in England, in London, and if so, the deck will be stacked against Andy Ruiz Jr. having to go across the pond and fight in London and fight in Joshua's hometown, and then probably the judges will be against you. But let me ask you a question here before you answer that. Was Anthony Joshua in the best physical condition last night, and did he take Ruiz for granted? And what do you think about a rematch?
Okay, so physically, I think Anthony Joshua was in shape. I mean, I mentioned he weighed in around, I think, 247, 248. That's generally speaking where he comes in around for a fight. So physically, he was in shape. But you mentioned the odds for this fight. I think it was 11-1 if you bet on Andy Ruiz. So Andy Ruiz was a last-second replacement. He was seen as a guy that Joshua should beat comfortably. The odds makers who usually get this stuff right called it, a wide fight. And I think Anthony Joshua read some of those press clippings. I also think this is a guy who basically won the gold medal in the Olympics and in London and then went pro and has had everything beautiful, golden paved roads for him his entire professional career. He hasn't suffered. He hasn't struggled. He hasn't faced adversity. I mentioned the Klitschko fight. He faced a little adversity there, but that was in his backyard, right? This is the first time he fought in America. This is following up on Deontay Wilder's highlight reel knockout of Dominic Breazeale a couple weeks ago. That was across the river there in Brooklyn. Last night they were fighting in the city at Madison Square Garden. So I think AJ had all this pressure on him. Plus, he probably overlooked his opponent. So physically, he was in great shape. Mentally and emotionally, maybe not 100%. But we're going to find out what he's made of because there is a rematch clause, and both him and his promoter, Eddie Hearns, say they will use that rematch clause. And I believe contractually the fight will go to London. That's where they have it written into the contract. So it will be in AJ's backyard, which kind of, you feel for Ruiz because he's the champion now. It should be in Los Angeles. But it's probably going to go to London later this year. And look, we've seen this before in boxing. A guy loses, he goes back to the drawing board, learns from that mistake. If Anthony Joshua fights smartly in the rematch and fights tall, moves his head a little bit because he fought like a statue last night, stood right in front of Ruiz and lunged in. If he uses his height, stays back, and works off the jab, he can win an easy 12-round decision. It might not be as exciting as some of his other fights, but he'll safely win. But the psychological factor, of course, Ruiz is going to come in with all the momentum, and now there's all these question marks around Anthony Joshua. You asked about the chin and everything else. We don't know. Is he the next Frank Bruno? We don't know. But we'll find out.
How about Al Heyman controlling all the heavyweight championship belts right now? What do you think about that? Is that good for boxing?
Well, Al Heyman pretty much owns the welterweight division. Of all the welterweights fought each other yet, there's only one guy that he doesn't own, one title he doesn't own, and that's held by Terrence Crawford. Al Heyman owns most of the junior middleweight division. Those guys haven't all fought each other yet. So, there's a history, and look, Al Heyman, I don't want to beat up on him. He's not the only promoter that does this. But just because you have all the titles, I haven't seen Al Heyman unify the divisions he owns in recent years. So, I don't know. I think right now, because of the contract situation, we're going to see Ruiz immediately fight Anthony Joshua next. Should Ruiz win that rematch, obviously the next logical fight would be between Deontay Wilder, who, by the way, just agreed in principle to have a rematch with Tyson Fury next year. The winner of that fight would probably fight Andy Ruiz next. That's the way it should go. Now, will it go that way? I don't know, man. You know that this is a boxing, so I'm not so sure.
Now, I would think that Tyson Fury, being the smart guy that he is and the slick boxer that he is, would stay away and jab and win a boring, easy decision over Andy Ruiz, which is the way, as you said, Anthony Joshua should fight him. How about Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz? You think eventually Wilder would drop a right hand on him, but could Ruiz get to Wilder's chin?
He absolutely could get to Wilder's chin. Deontay Wilder, other than his fight with Tyson Fury, he has not fought any heavyweights as good as Andy Ruiz. Now, some people out there may find my statement controversial because he fought a couple of ranked fighters, guys like Luis Ortiz, Berman Stavern. That's about it. I think Andy Ruiz is better than both of them. The only fighter I would say that is better than Andy Ruiz that Deontay Wilder has fought is Tyson Fury. And I thought Tyson Fury outboxed him and won more rounds against him. And the only reason their fight was a draw is because Wilder was able to catch him twice. But that was an active Tyson Fury who hadn't been fighting top opposition for a few years. So, look, if you look at the way Deontay Wilder fights, the right hand is an eraser. And if he lands it, he can hurt anybody. However, in between those punches, those exchanges, he leaves his chin up in the air. He has horrible fundamentals. His balance is all over the place.
Yep.
Andy Ruiz throws punches and bunches from weird angles. He absolutely could catch Deontay Wilder. If he can take Wilder's right hand, he absolutely can beat him.
I was thinking last night watching this, and Mike, you would know better than me. I think it might be time for Anthony Joshua to clean house with his trainers and get a whole new staff in there because he ran out of gas.
Absolutely.
He had stamina problems. I think it's time to clean house and bring in a whole new training team.
I completely agree with you, Dave. It's the first thing I thought, and actually I've thought it for a while. Look, I brought up Vladimir Klitschko earlier. I brought up Lennox Lewis earlier. After their early losses, what did they do? They cleaned house.
Emmanuel Stewart.
They got with Emmanuel Stewart. That's right. The late, great Emmanuel Stewart, I think the best trainer of all time. Maybe I'm biased because he's from my hometown of Detroit, but I think he was just outstanding, just a great trainer that was able to not only physically condition fighters, but mentally and, most importantly, emotionally condition fighters. Now, he's no longer with us. He passed away years ago. However, Vladimir Klitschko and Lennox Lewis is still around. If I am Team Anthony Joshua, I am picking up the phone and calling those guys, and I am wanting to meet with them, sit down, and try to devise a new strategy in camp. First thing for AJ, he's got to lose muscle. It's great to look muscular and have all the girls looking at you. Cool, that's great. It's not going to help you in fights. Yeah, lose the muscle. Stop lifting weights. This isn't a weightlifting competition. That's the first thing Emmanuel Stewart did with Vladimir Klitschko. He got him out of the weight room. He got him in a pool swimming, and he did nothing but boxing drills and sparring. That's all they did. No more weightlifting. If you look at Vladimir Klitschko earlier in his career and late in his career, he's smaller. Later in his career, he lost muscle. He got more fluid. He started moving his head more. He fought with more rhythm. He had a wonderful rhythm going the last few years of his career when he was dominating the division. Same thing with Lennox Lewis. So does Anthony Joshua have that kind of discipline, that humility in him to make those changes and accept that he needs to make those changes? I don't know, but we're going to find out, and it's going to be a hell of a ride, man.
Great stuff, Mike. Before we let you go, we've got about just a couple of seconds here. How can we find you on and see your show on YouTube?
Well, every Monday night, I do a show called The Neutral Corner, and I do that live on my YouTube channel, Montero on Boxing. And then the audio podcast goes out on Spotify, iTunes, Spreaker, all of them. And then also, I write for The Ring magazine here in the United States, and I write for Boxing Monthly magazine in the UK. So find my articles there.
Great stuff, Mike. Good talking to you again.